Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast. I have some cool stuff to talk about and a fun interview. And I'm also on Instagram now, so if you guys are into that stuff, just, I'll leave the link in the description, but it's just RetroRGB as usual. And I think it's kind of neat because I don't like to spam other platforms with pictures, but I see a bunch of neat nerdy stuff that I'd like to share, so I figure I'll give it a try. And if nobody follows me, whatever, it's free, so who cares. But anyway, on to the news. First up, I posted a video about how to check the components that are inside your RGB SCART cables, and then about a day after I posted it, I realized I left out something really important, so I had to delete it and repost it. I don't know if that was just my OCD kicking in or if the things that I had forgotten to put in were really that important, but either way, if you're really concerned about the stuff that's inside your cables, definitely maybe just give it another watch, leave it on in the background or something. But I basically just reiterated the type of caps that you would need, as well as what to do if there's a sync stripper or some other kind of circuit in there. But hopefully this stuff is starting to get helpful because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and especially with the whole cable thing a few weeks ago, there's a lot of panic. And it's really, all these things aren't that big of a deal as long as you know what to do and how to make the very quick repairs. And obviously, just to put this out there, I've been speaking to the two major cable manufacturers, Retro Gaming Cables and Retro Console Accessories. And, as of now, all of the cables that are going out should be perfect. I mean, I'm crazy, so I'm going to test mine anyway because I wouldn't be RetroRGB if I didn't. But, from now on, you should be fine. There were people going back and forth saying, I just got one last month that had the wrong resistor. Oh, I got one 2 months ago that had the right resistor. I don't really know. Maybe there was old stock left over. Or maybe somebody misunderstood what they were looking at, which is exactly why I made the video, because it's very easy to pop open the SCART head, see the component, and think you have the wrong thing, but it actually has the correct component in there. I definitely go over that in the video as well. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think of it. And I've been posting all my videos to Patreons first so that they could kind of give some feedback, and I really liked that. I actually have been able to make some pretty important changes as a result. So once again, I hate to sound like a sleazy car salesman, but if you just donate $1, you could have early access to all this stuff and give good feedback. It's always appreciated because these videos aren't just for me, they're for everybody to use, hopefully. But anyway, links are in the description. Next, Renee from DB Electronics posted a follow-up to his flashcart blog post, and this time he actually showed the work on how he came to the conclusions he did. And I guess he thought it was a good way to clarify his findings and just show that it wasn't a random theory. But unfortunately, the trolls just went nuts with it again. And I don't think people seem to realize exactly why that's a problem, and hopefully by now they do, because misinformation was absolutely spread everywhere, and then it got picked up by Nintendo Life, who did a post about it, as well as a bunch of YouTubers that just used it for clickbait, which just enrages me. So Renee and I had a bit of fun and posted our own clickbaity video as a result of it, because I guess it was just at least my way of sticking my middle finger up in the air towards all the trolls that almost ruined this for people, and now there's a whole group of people out there that probably think ROM carts are bad. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it wasn't the most mature thing to do, but fuck it. Yeah, so once again, my view on this has not changed at all. I thought it was a really well-written blog post. I think it's great that we're aware of this stuff. Even though Krikz's responses has been weird, he said he realized a lot of the things that Renee pointed out, and they're going to be corrected on future revisions. And I'm still going to use all my ROM carts. I'm just going to be aware of what it is that I'm doing. So, using it on a Genesis I bought for 20 bucks that I could probably fix if it breaks, no problem. Using it on my CDX, probably going to be a little more careful. So, I don't know, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide, but hopefully you get a kick out of the video at least. There's a new update to the Wavebeam color palette. That's the custom NES palette made by Naked Arthur, which is basically It's something that was based off of his interpretation of what the color should look like, and not like a side-by-side comparison with the CRT. And I absolutely love it. I think he did a great job, and I've been playing on my analog NT Mini, and depending on the game, I keep switching back and forth between my favorite Firebrand X palette and this updated Wavebeam one. But I mean, that's I've said before a million times, that's the great thing about these, is there is no right way. It's whatever your eyes prefer. So I highly recommend people check them all out, and if you have a device where you could switch between them, even a NES RGB, if you're able to flash the firmware on it, you're able to use all of these different ones. So definitely give it a chance if you have the ability to. But if not, even if you're curious, the link is in the description to the page where you could actually see side by side the different colors for each game. Someone on the Shmups forum has posted videos of a GCVideo installed into a Wii. And before I go any further, this isn't a finished product or something people could buy. This is just he manually installed one into it, cut a hole in the side, and got it working. But he posted footage just to show what it could look like if there was a product. And while there's other people who have posted footage in the past, I just thought it would be cool to show everybody this. And hopefully we'll be seeing a product like this for the Wii soon, because I think a lot of people prefer to use it on a flat screen, and going digital to digital would always be a better choice. A post was made on Nintendo's Japanese page that said they were no longer making the regular-sized new 3DS, so apparently they'll still be making the XL version, but not the normal-sized version, which obviously is spelling an end for the 3DS, unless new products are coming out in the future. But as of now, it looks like the 2DS XL and the new 3DS XL are going to be the only ones you could purchase new for a while. Maybe they'll have a follow-up product, maybe not, but I'm interested to see what they do, especially because they have a few brand new games announced that aren't coming out until the end of the year. So hopefully they'll continue production and not cancel production of the console, but still have new games coming out. I guess that wouldn't really make sense, but I guess we'll see. The team behind RetroArch has just started a Patreon for an FPGA-based product. Unfortunately, there's not much more information on the Patreon yet. I, for one, would love to know how they plan to go about doing this. Are they reverse engineering each console in RetroArch and making kind of like what Kevin Horton is doing? Is it just an embedded, almost like a system on a chip? I have a million questions that I would love to know the answers to. But for now, if you're interested, check out the link, and maybe I can get one of those guys on for an interview to talk to them about exactly what their plan is. There's now a ROM cart available for the older TI-99 computers, which is absolutely awesome. I love things like this because even though some of those computers are still working and running well, trying to get the cartridges, the disk drives, everything else, all these things are going to start to die off sooner rather than later. So having ROM carts to keep all those things alive is very cool. So anybody with a TI-99, definitely look into it because it seems like a good buy. RetroUSB has announced that their wireless controller is now in stock and ready for purchase. I already ordered mine, so hopefully it'll come in soon and I'll be able to do some testing on it. But they claim that the lag is as low as possible. So with Bluetooth, there is latency, and it is more than a wired controller would be. But it really depends on the console you're using it and the game itself to see if you'd really notice it. Personally, on an old NES, I could tell when there's latency on the 8-bit Do Bluetooth controllers. And it's not bad at all, but I kind of realize it's there, especially when you're playing on a flat screen, because now you have video latency and controller latency. But on newer consoles that are designed with Bluetooth in mind and designed knowing that there's controller latency, I don't notice at all. It seems fine. So I think for older consoles, having as low latency as possible is really important because the games were designed for zero video and zero controller latency, and anything added would kind of mess with the gameplay. So I'm really curious to see how it works, and I really want to put it through its paces, and hopefully I could have some of the Brooklyn hardcore gamers up here to check it out too, because they would be able to tell even more than I would. It looks like someone on the Sega 16 forums has found a copy of the Super Strike Trilogy for Sega CD, and that was a game that was announced at E3 in 1995, and it included enhanced editions of Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, and Urban Strike. I actually loved those games too as a kid, and supposedly it had extra content and a few other things on there. I would assume better audio because Sega CD games all kind of did that, and they posted it for people to use. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays and seeing how complete it actually is. So anybody that's interested, check out the link down below. Atari just posted some more information about the Atari Box, the upcoming console, and they really didn't show too much. They showed that there'll be 2 editions, one that kind of has the retro feel with the wood grain look to it, and another has a red bezel to it. And they didn't really show anything other than a bunch of USB ports and an HDMI port. So I'm not sure if they're doing this on purpose just to continue teasing it, or if they haven't really gotten anywhere in production. But no price, release date, or anything else, just more teasers. The Neo Geo game Windjammers will be re-released on the PlayStation 4 and PS Vita on August 29th. So it's pretty cool to see some of the best of the Neo Geo library still living on. I know Cousin Scott loves Windjammers. I like it a lot, but I kind of suck at it, so I can't enjoy it as much as he does. But hopefully I'll get a chance to try out the PS4 version and see how it works. Next, Krikzz just announced that his Game Boy X series of ROM carts should be released around August. And basically it's moving his Game Boy ROM cart over to his X series, X3, X5, and X7, each with a different feature set, kind of like the Intel processors. So the higher the number, the more features you get with it. So it looks great. I'm definitely going to get an X7 to test as soon as it's released, and more details are in his blog post in the description. Next, Alex, aka Arcade TV, has just released the design files for his PI2GENESIS USB Hub. So basically you could buy one of those Sega Genesis USB 2.0 hubs, rip out the guts, and use his board design to install a Raspberry Pi 3 pretty smoothly. It looks like a really awesome design, and I can't wait to get one just to play with. Also, this one will output 15 kilohertz RGB, so it could actually be like a mini Raspberry Pi Genesis. And I haven't talked to Alex in a while, so I gotta try to get him on here one of these days. He's had a lot of great inventions over the years and shared pretty much everything with the community for free. So I'd really love to pick his brain and see how he gets started with this stuff. But for now, if you're interested, the link is in the description. Woozle just uploaded a video of a prototype HDMI Game Gear board. So it's based off of all the work he's done for the Game Boy Advance, but he installed it in a Game Gear to see if it would work, and it looks like with some minor changes and some software tweaks, it will. So this is still just a prototype phase. He still has to launch the Game Boy Advance version, which hopefully is still on track for end of summer. But it's very cool to see that he's continuing his work onto other handhelds, because there's so many great games on those old consoles where, especially with the Game Gear, the screens, in my opinion at least, didn't age well at all. So now there's many different ways to play them on a TV, and I can't wait to try out his HDMI version. There's actually 2 things I forgot to talk about last week. I have no idea how I skipped over them. I think my eyes must have glossed right over in my notes. But the first one was Omar, who goes by Bach on the SMS Power forums, and one of the developers of Wonder Boy: A Dragon's Trap remake, has released a Rayman Prototype for Super Nintendo. And while it's not complete, in fact, when you turn it on, it just goes directly into the level. There's no title screen, there's no enemies or music, you just kind of run back and forth. It's very cool to see what it would have looked like on the SNES, and it's really impressive. So who knows, maybe it wouldn't have run as good with a screen full of enemies and status bars and stuff, but it's really awesome that they found that and we saw what could have been. I actually really like Rayman for the Jaguar, which is weird because, the Jaguar doesn't have too many great games, but I would have loved to have seen what it did on the SNES. So anybody that wants to check it out, the link is in the description. And the other thing I missed from last week was somebody hooked their Game Boy camera up into a telescope and was able to take pictures of the moon. And while on the one hand, whatever, it's kind of useless, I still thought that was freaking awesome, and I really wanted to share it. So hopefully you guys are as amused by that as I was. And of course, the extra pictures and the links are down below. Next, HDRetrovision just added a form on its website so you could submit 240p compatibility info. So basically, if your TV is compatible with 240p through the component inputs and processes it correctly, not as 480i, if you wouldn't mind just adding your TVs to the list, and that way we have one location with all compatible TVs compiled, because I think information like this is helpful for everybody. And lastly, tonight is the monthly Retro Roundtable podcast. So that's today, Wednesday, July 19th, and it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with myself, the HDRetrovision guys, Voltar, and of course, DB Electronics, Renee. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about this time. So tune in. We do it live, and that way anybody who wants to ask us anything or wants to jump up in the chat can do so. We always monitor the chat as well, so we try to get to everybody's questions, but should be an interesting one tonight. Okay, on to the Q&As. I got a question for you guys this time, an easy one, I think. But the winner of this month's giveaway actually politely declined. His setup is already perfect the way it is, and rather than just take some cables and not use them, he gave them, or told me to hold on to them and give them to the next person, which is really, you know, that's a very awesome thing to do. So thank you again to him for doing that, and not just taking them and throwing them on eBay or something. But I'm still kind of new to the Patreon thing, so could you guys, how do you feel I should handle this? Should I just do another drawing and give it to the next person? Should I do that privately? Should I do that on air like last time? Should I just wait till next month and give them away next month? Like I said, I'm kind of new to this stuff, and I'd like to know what the community wants and what other people are doing. So please let me know how you'd like me to handle it, and hopefully I'll just have that done by next week for you. Next is a question from Dopefish. He asked, on the topic of preserving consoles, it bothers me that a lot of the optical drive replacements for consoles requires that you remove the original drive. Wouldn't it be possible for them to coexist or at least have a switch? I've been interested in a lot of them, but for me it's important that the console retain its original functionality. Well, there's actually two answers to that. The one for the Sega Saturn called the Satiator, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But that's the one from Professor Abrasive, and that plugs into the back of your Saturn, and it won't affect any other functionality. There's no cutting, there's nothing else. But the good news is all the other optical drive emulators that I've seen don't require any cutting at all, and it's 100% reversible. And on top of that, it's actually kind of easy. When I did the one for Dreamcast, it took about a minute and a half, and it just unplugs, unplug the CD-ROM drive, stick it in bubble wrap to preserve it, plug it, the new thing in, and you're done. So while I'm definitely turning into a preservationist, I'm actually a huge fan of the way that these guys do it, because you don't cut a console, and you don't even have to remove any electronic components. It's really just plug and play. So that way, if you did ever want to put its original functionality back, it's just a few screws and it's perfect. Not only that, but now you also really preserve the life of that CD-ROM drive because it's not even being powered on. So there's zero wear and tear on it. So I hope that answered your question properly. I mean, the direct answer to your question is, I guess the only one that I know of is the one coming out for the Saturn, but the rest of them, you don't have to cut anything. So in my opinion, it's still pretty awesome. Next, Ludo posted a question inside the Patreon app, but I figured I would answer it here in front of everybody because I thought it was a pretty good question. It was in regards to the oscilloscope captures that Steve from HDRetrovision had sent me that I used in that How to Check Your Cables video. And I'll put the scope picture up here for you guys to reference, but I'll read his questions as well. He had two. First of all, can you please confirm what defines the valid ranges? So the valid range that we're aiming for in all of these tests is just whatever video standard you're aiming for. So in the example in the video, it was NTSC video. So NTSC 75 ohm standard, which is basically the same that you'd find on composite video. And that voltage is 212 to 949 millivolts peak to peak. And that way, you try to pick components that'll land right in the middle of that, and that will allow for some variances. So for example, it's suggested to use a 470 ohm resistor, but if you end up buying ones with 10% tolerance instead of 1% tolerance, the fact that it's putting it right in the middle of that spec means that it compensates for that extra swing if there is any. Also, he asked, why does the yellow line values change depending on what components are put after it? So just quickly in the capture here, the yellow line represents the voltage coming out of the console, and the blue line represents the voltage going out of the SCART pin under a full load, and full load is everything powered on and running. And the best example I could come up with, the best analogy, is basically when a load is put on the system, it affects the entire signal start to finish all the way back. And imagine like towing a boat with your car. When you clamp the hook around the trailer, there's a small change to the way your car sits, but once you start driving, the entire car is affected, not just the hook around the boat trailer. So, you know, every time you clamp something on, everything in the chain starts to get affected by it. So that's why you look for mid voltages on both of these things. But of course, us as retro gamers, the bottom line is we just care about the output, and the only way to really measure that is with an oscilloscope. So hopefully I'll have another video coming out if I ever can buy one of those things and really show how exactly to do that. I certainly would never recommend people go out and buy a scope just to test their cables, because you could just match the components as I showed in the video. But yeah, great questions, and I just wanted to address that with everybody. And lastly, for the Q&As, I got a lot of questions about the EverDrive stuff and the voltages, and they were all great questions, but I think they were all answered in the video I did with Renee, because while I was trying to make that funny and you know, a bit teasing people, it did actually answer everybody's questions, and everything we said was valid. Everything Renee said was valid. Everything I said was kind of a joke, but hopefully everybody's questions could be answered with that. Okay, that's it for this week. Up next, I have an interview with Arturo, who runs arcade tournaments and just an overall fun guy to hang out with. So hopefully you guys like his story, and if you're near any of the arcade tournaments he's involved in, I highly recommend showing up and just checking it out and seeing what it's like. But as always, any comments or criticism, post down below, and I'll see you guys next week. What's up, guys? I am here with Arturo from Team Spooky. What's up, man?
What's up, Bob?
Good to see you. Glad you're here.
Yep, I'm glad to be in the warehouse. It's actually like my 4th or 5th time here, but
yeah, it's a fun place.
Yeah, but like first time on your show, man. Like, thanks for having me as a guest, man. I'm really honored, and I love the work you do.
Thank you. I'm glad you could be here. And you were the first official guest in the office, so hopefully next time we'll have better cameras. Thanks to you, actually. But yeah, I'd so much rather do in-person interviews. Now, I know I can't fly all over the world, but
of course,
it's so much more fun having a beer, just kind of chilling.
Yeah, man. Like it just happened that we actually ended up knowing mutual friends of ours, and it turns out that in New York City, like there is like a bunch of RGB heads. Like they know each other through like one association at best.
Yeah, and it's cool to have like both worlds, you know, coming together now, because you know, you do the arcade stuff, but people who watch the podcast have actually seen you on camera once before in the Too Old Too Furious, when I walked in front of the camera like an asshole. That was
it's all good. It's all good, man. Nah, but it's all good. But like I find between like the arcade stuff and the fighting game space and RGB, there's definitely like a lot of crossover there, because like, you know, a lot of these guys, there's a segment of the fighting game community that plays retro games on retro consoles, which is pretty much what you do. So like there's definitely like a huge amount of crossover. Like, in fact, like I was at Evolution 2017 this year, and I know I told you this earlier, but they had like a huge retro section, and the minute I went over there, everybody was like, oh my god, Art, 202 Furious next week's gonna be crazy. Like, you know, make sure you shout out Krikzz, Min, Bob, and like all those guys out there, because you guys are doing God's work.
Yeah. Well, for people that aren't familiar with you, why don't you just start by telling what Team Spooky is and what you guys do?
Oh, so Team Spooky is a brand that specializes in fighting game broadcasts. We've been in the space for like about 9 years or so, and we're pretty much one of the big first streams on Twitch. Even before it was called Twitch TV, we've been on the platform since.
TV, was it before?
Yeah, we've been on the platform since it was called Justin TV. Literally, it was just 4 of us. It was me, Min, Nerd Josh, Spooky. We were just recording poverty fighting games out of a basement, right? Like, so we decided to record sets for fun. Our video production started when we started capturing arcade boards. We bought this game called Arcana Heart, which is outputting over a VGA RGB. So we're just recording it through a DVD recorder back then, and it was just us playing games in our basement. Fast forward to now, at that time, Vic said that he wanted to break into the fighting game community. And me, like, I'm a long-time player. I'm 34 years old. So I've been in the community for like about 20 years or so. And this is before streaming really started to take off. Oh, yeah. So at that time, when I met Vic, he was like, yo, he hit me up and he was like, yo, like, I'll sponsor you to go to events and stuff like that. Can you help me get in touch with all the tournament organizers, because I think streaming is taking off. So this is like about 2009, 2010 or so. So I introduced him to all the TOs, and they loved him and his brand so much that they started, well, like, not only him, but the rest of us, we all started doing a lot of the major fighting game events in the space, whether it comes to retro stuff, so all like the modern like fighting games, Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, whatever. And now it's to the point where now like a lot of the guys I work with are now producing Evolution, which is the largest fighting game tournament in the entire world. And now Spooky himself is working for XSplit, so it's really come a long way.
Man, that's a big deal.
It's incredible, yeah. It's incredible.
So what tournaments are you involved in, and what's your involvement in it? I mean, I know some of them you're there as a guest, but I guess the one that I attended, Too Old Too Furious, that's something that's run completely by you guys, right?
Yeah. So like as far as Too Old Too Furious goes, I'm pretty much the streamer for it. So I work with Krikzz. Actually works with me directly. He brings like a bunch of old school retro equipment to capture from arcade cabinets. So he brings the JAMA to RGB transcoders. He was the first guy that exposed me to the OSSC, and he exposed me about you. Min pretty much handles the tournament organizing part of it, and he also brings extra equipment, like he brings PVMs and BVMs and monitors and arcade boards and all this stuff. And it's really a community effort. Like, you know, Too Old Too Furious, like, even though like it's ran by me and Min, it's really a community thing, because, you know, Krikzz, as I said, he comes through with a bunch of equipment. A lot of the players come through with like super guns and like PVMs and BVMs.
A lot of the players bring their own old school monitors, right?
Yes,
I saw that. I was so fucking impressed when I saw people were lugging their own PVMs in there so they could game on real equipment. That shit makes me happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not something that's happened overnight. Like, you know, this happened over like the last couple of years, because Too Old Too Furious has been around for like about like 5 years or so. And back then, we were just doing it on regular composite CRTs. It's only like in the last couple of years, like, you know, finding out like about you guys and stuff, that we really started to get like more broadcast monitors, more PVMs, etc., stuff like that. So the version of Too Old Too Furious you saw, that was 5 years in the making. It took us 5 years to get to that point. It wasn't always like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but it really paid off. So for people that want to compete, what exactly do they have to do? Is it literally just sign up? Or
so it's literally just show up to Next Level. It's gonna be like this Saturday. It's gonna be.
So Next Level is like a what would you call it? Like I don't want to call it a streaming place.
So Next Level is a hybrid console / arcade / card game cafe. So like it fulfills multiple niches. So if you want to play card games in Brooklyn, that's a spot that you want to go to. You want to buy like stuff for all these card games, whether it's Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, or like various card games.
Right.
If you want to go there to play fighting games, so that's pretty much like the default spot for all hardcore fighting game competition in New York. Actually, one of the ways that we got started is because I have a 20-year relationship with one of the owners of Next Level, Henry Sen. You ever been to Chinatown Fair before?
No, I just did a little write-up about it. But I haven't actually been.
So to give you like a little bit of background, so Chinatown Fair, like, it's an arcade that's been around for like about 50 years or so.
Very famous arcade.
Yeah, very famous.
Just had the documentary on it.
Yeah, very famous arcade. So pretty much anybody who's a top player from the East Coast in the fighting game space, they all got their start there. Whether it's like Justin Wong, Krikzz G, myself, Eddie Lee, Sanford Kelly, the name goes on and on and on. So like all this was facilitated by Henry Sen, who was the manager of Chinatown Fair at the time, and this was during the period of 1997, probably a couple of years even earlier than that, until like 2011, 2012, when the owner sold the current Chinatown Fair, right? So when that place pretty much moved on, he opened his own spot called Next Level, which is based out of Brooklyn. So he took all of his arcade know-how to the new store in Brooklyn, and he understood the value of streaming and broadcasting tournaments. So that's where we broadcast like pretty much our marquee tournament series. That's called Next Level Battle Circuit, and that's pretty much a tournament based around fighting games that we've been broadcasting for like about 9 years on Twitch TV. And Twitch likes like our event so much that we've been front page on Twitch for 9 years. So we were literally able to build like a platform around that, and and build the entire East Coast fighting game community. And Henry Sen's a guy who loves fighting games, so he's committed into seeing like the venue through and really having a place where all these players can play and level up. And what's been happening is, like, in the last couple of years or so, like, a lot of these players that come to my events every Wednesday, these guys are being picked up by major esports organizations, like, for salaries and stuff. So it wasn't always like this. So it's really come, like, a long way.
No, this is a very new thing.
Yeah, it's a very new thing. So it's pretty much bigger than me, like, just streaming. It's a platform for these guys to really sell themselves.
So just to draw the family tree, if you will, Team Spooky, for at least these specific events that we're talking about, collects the hardware and sets everything up, all the streaming and all the promotion.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then you team up with different venues, places that you can go into. Next Level's the place in Brooklyn. And for the record, for anybody that knows about this stuff, there's actually street parking around there.
Yeah, there is.
For people around the world that haven't been to certain areas of Brooklyn, that's usually impossible. But
you actually came to the new spot where there's parking now, because now there's parking. Yes. There's a barbecue area in the backyard. There's a basement level.
So the thing that strikes me about both of these are we didn't have this as kids.
No,
ever,
never.
And I know so many people. I am not one of them, by the way, but I know so many people that are amazing at fighting games and have the love for it in the way any athlete has the love for their sport. So, but the reason you don't see them is because there was literally no place for them to go other than their buddies.
And people don't know that these types of events exist.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's why I really wanted you on here, because and he's not paying me to fawn over him or anything.
Yeah,
but I walked into Too Old Too Furious a couple of months ago, thinking, because I'd seen some slapped together tournaments before.
Yeah, Krikzz was telling you. I remember Krikzz was telling you to come for months.
Yeah, I mean, when Jose and Ben from iFix Retro, Jose Cruz was, I showed him last time in the setup where he was able to split the output properly, so there wasn't drawing too much current from each side. That alone was impressive. But when Jose told me to come, I'm like, I actually had something else to do that day, and I'm like, well, if Jose says come, I gotta come, because he wouldn't waste my time. But I did not expect that. That was some cool shit. So the fact that I now have something that I could recommend to people, that's pretty awesome. And you don't just do East Coast stuff, right?
No, we pretty much cover the entire fighting game space nationwide. So it's like you'll see us like in various countries. Like right now, the founder of Team Spooky, Vic, he works for XSplit and he's based out of the Philippines. So he does like a lot of like Asian-based events. He does like a lot of events in Philippines, in Japan. Sometimes he goes to Europe. And I cover mostly the North America stuff. Although I'm East Coast based, there's quite a lot of times like I'm flying to West Coast, like East Coast, Midwest, various places in between. So if you've seen a fighting game event, like you've probably seen our work.
That's pretty awesome. And how much does it cost on average to sign up for one of these things?
So it's pretty cheap. It's only like $10. It's only $10 entry and $10 venue.
Really cheap.
Yeah, it's only $10 entry and $10 venue. To go in and play like some arcade goodness on RGB monitors.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because I was telling you about my friend. I'm gonna call him out loud.
Jamal.
I hope he's not pissed at me. But Jamal, we lived in Stamford, Connecticut together, and he walked into a bar when they had some low-level tournament there one time, not knowing there was a tournament. And the dude that won, he'd been playing all day. He was already warmed up. He walked up and destroyed him. So, but the reason you don't see him out there is just the same reason you don't see so many of these people. Is because how do you know this exists? So when I told him, it was like no bullshit, legit equipment, and then I showed him the final setup with the sit down cab and everything.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully we'll get him there on Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah, that cabinet was really sick. Just to give you like a little bit of history like about that cabinet. So that cabinet was donated to us by the stream monsters of our stream. If you guys don't know, we're on Team Spooky on Twitch with 2 zeros. So the stream.
So SP00.
SP00KY. So the Stream Monsters, they like what we were doing so much.
Who are the Stream Monsters?
So the Stream Monsters are the people that watch my stream. We call them Stream Monsters. Okay. Like that's the terminology. So the stream viewers, they like what we were doing so much that they said like, yo, like you want to see an arcade cabinet inside Next Level, and they literally like got their money together to buy a head-to-head like off somebody in the East Coast, and it's been at that location for like about 4 years or so, which I think is really awesome because that cabinet is there. I can do that. Was the catalyst for me learning like a lot like about RGB stuff. and things like that.
That's really a testament to what you do. The fact that the people that watch you want to watch you on this. It's almost like you're a stripper and they're buying you guys outfits.
Yeah, man. Yeah, nah. It's all good, man. But then it was freaking amazing because not only like was I able to use it, like, you know, Krikzz would come by with his crew for VF and he would use it too. So, you know, it's not only me getting use out of it, it's the whole community. It was able to blow it up. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, me too. So how did you personally get started in all this stuff? I mean, how did you go from being a kid in a place where there really wasn't much? I mean, did you grow up around New York?
Yeah,
Were you able to go to like all these?
So I was always born and raised in New York City. Like I was born in 1982, so I was really like around during the golden years of retro
fighting
gaming.
Games.
Fighting games and retro gaming. My first game was actually Spy Hunter in 1986. So
I love it.
That was the game that got me hooked as a kid. Like I would walk across the street and go to the store to my laundromat, and I'd be like, "Hey, this is a cool game, Spy Hunter," and I got addicted from then. Like I pretty much had the bug. I didn't start getting into.
It was Outrun in the lobby of a diner for me.
Nice. I mean, that game's incredible. So I was always playing as a competitor. I was always playing like just for fun, and that was during the era where EGM, GamePro magazine were like really like, you know, front and center, like in terms of the gaming world, because like, you know, there wasn't really a lot of internet access back then. Like I had internet because my dad went to college, so I was reading news groups, but for the most part, if I wanted the info, I'd have to buy like these gaming magazines and stuff. And then when I read them, like I grew up a couple of years past, you know, it was like 91. That was when the fighting game renaissance started taking place. So I would start reading like about like a lot of these guides for all the old school fighting games and stuff like that, and they would have listings there for tournaments and stuff. And that's when I first figured out about the tournament scene. Of course, I was 11, so I couldn't really travel, but I would read like about like how like there were all like these amazing tournaments in California and the Midwest and stuff like that, right? And like how all these old school fighting game players that I know today on a first name basis would go to these events and win and blow it up. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I hope I get old enough to actually compete in these events someday. So, fast forward to like around 96 or 98, I'm like 16. I find out about Chinatown Fair, and I compete in a tournament there for Marvel vs. Capcom 1. And I think I got second place next to my teacher at the time, Eddie Lee. And once I was there at that tournament, I met Henry Sen, who's the founder of Next Level. And this was like in 98. And he had told me like about the tournament scene and like about everything that was going on in the entire fighting game space. So after like that point, I started competing at other events since like 98 up until now. So it's really pretty much changed my life. Like I met like a lot of contacts. I met a lot of cool friends, had a lot of cool memories. I've gone to places that I would never imagine I would even went to. Like fighting games have sent me as far as Japan, where I can see the Mecca. Like, not that many people can say that they've done that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So along the way, like, you know, when I first started playing, like, you know, I just wanted to play. I didn't think I was going to be like a broadcaster or a streamer or anything like that. And along the way, during the time while I was playing stuff in the mid 2000s, that's where I met Spooky at Chinatown Fair. And like he was a person that played fighting games, but he played the underrepresented niche Japanese fighting games that nobody knows about. But we ended up being friends.
Give one example of that.
Okay, so
in that time period,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters for Super Nintendo. Although it blew up back in the day and it was at the Blockbuster Championships in the 90s, people largely forgot about it. And we were still playing it in like 2000, stuff like that. Also, another game is Melty Blood at Cadenza. That's a really niche Japanese fighting game that's on PC only. It's still alive today. People are so passionate about it that they'll play tournaments for this game in a parking lot at a tournament. That's happened awesome. Multiple times. Like there was one event where somebody pulled the fire alarm, and the tournament was going on, and they're all like, "Yo, we'll just finish the tournament on our laptops in the parking lot." And like, there's a picture of me in the parking lot recording like 40 like anime heads playing this game in a parking lot. It was just really cool.
That's awesome.
It was just really cool.
So, when you grew up in New York, were you in Queens?
So I'm Queens based. So
it's basically just one long subway ride to Chinatown Fair. Then,
yeah.
Right?
So I had no need to go to Chinatown Fair back in the day because a lot of the arcades they were like in corner stores, they were like in bodegas, stuff like that.
Right.
So I didn't need to go very far. So it was a very unique period where I would get out of school, and like after school, I would walk home, and I would walk to various pizza places, bowling alleys, bodegas, corner stores that all had these games inside, and it's a pretty unique experience, especially compared to now where everybody plays mostly online. It's like you would always go to your corner store, and there would be like a bodega or like Hood Champion or somebody who's like the best in that particular area, but nobody actually knew who was good because the internet wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut for a while, and there was a pizza place that had a Mortal Kombat machine.
Let me guess, you went to Smiles.
No.
No? You went to Smiles?
No, I moved around a lot as a kid.
I see.
Divorced parents and all that shit. But
Mm-hmm.
we meaning me and my cousin Scott, we'd already discovered Mortal Kombat and loved it. So I was already good enough at it to at least not be a wide-eyed 11-year-old and be like, oh, what's this? I was never good enough to compete or anything. But that was exactly what you described. You walk out of your house, you walk a couple blocks, you go to the pizza place. You have your pocket full of quarters. You annoy the shit out of the guy working the register because he doesn't have enough quarters for the game.
And then like I would always have stuff printed out from GameFAQs showing the move lists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would go to the library
on your dot matrix printer.
Yeah. So I would go to the library and use their printer, and then I'll have like the whole. Whenever a new arcade game would come out, I would have like the whole like move set printed out like ready, right? And then everybody would always ask me at the arcade like, "Yo, how do you do this move? How do you do that move?" And then I would have like the printed guide right there showing the list of moves.
Yeah, that stuff's awesome.
Yeah.
We the extent of our arcade experiences, because for a while I lived in the middle of the woods. So, every Saturday the family would get in the car. I lived with my uncle at that point, and a different cousin, Nick. We would always go with my little brother, and I think it was called Time Out in the Danbury Mall.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very cool. That was the first time. I mean, video games have gotten amazing and, exponentially better.
Absolutely.
But there is no feeling that describes how you feel when you're a kid and you get inside an Afterburner arcade.
Oh my god,
and you turn left and the whole thing. It's still a cheesy game. It's still, you play it for 5 minutes. You don't play it for hours, but...
Wow. On that note, have you ever been to Galloping Ghost Arcade in Chicago?
No.
They have like a stand-up Afterburner, and they have like a stand-up, like a lot of cabinets.
Well, there's a couple of stand-up Afterburners around here, but I'm talking about the original sit-down ones.
Yeah, no, wait, I'm sorry. I mean the sit-down ones. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like, I was actually able to go there recently, and I was in a sit-down Afterburner machine, and I was like, wow, this is exactly what I remember in my childhood. Yeah. It was awesome. That game's awesome. I love that game.
Kill 5 minutes at a time. I mean, that's the, when I eventually did get an arcade machine at my house and, was able to build a main box into it, being able to go through all the games that I used to play and just beat them, with infinite quarters, it was not the same.
No.
Because it's not about beating the game. It's about that 5-minute experience.
Yeah, it definitely is like about the 5-minute experience, and there's definitely something to be said for that, because during the arcade era, when you were spending your own money, so it's like you commonly had to quarter up. You had to put your quarter up, and because you're spending money, there's more of an investment to like not lose, step your shit up basically.
And if you go the other, I mean, nowadays you just Google like top 10 whatever, but a lot of the games that I discovered were because there was a line at the other games. So it's like, all right, my parents said I only have 10 minutes left. What game is there not a line on? And I discovered so many cool games that I probably wouldn't have gone to just because they weren't as flashy or crazy, with the 90s paint jobs on the side and shit like that. But yeah, I loved all that stuff. And it just...
Did you ever go to any of the nickel arcades? Did you have any of those around you?
We did not.
Oh man, you missed out on that. Like there was these nickel arcades on the West Coast I used to go to called Wonderland, and it's like you would pay like $5 to enter, but everything would be like 5-10 cents. So it's like you definitely get your money's worth.
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference though by far the biggest difference between then and now is we talk, we're talking very fondly of these memories, but if people want to be a part of this, because a lot of times I would go there with my cousins and whoever was winning, we'd all be crowding around them and watching them play, and like now this is something that anybody could just log into and enjoy. And for me, I absolutely love soccer and football. Football's my thing, though. Clearly, look at me.
Yeah.
But, I do have a passion for a lot of these things. And just being able... Because, so many of us, it's so hard to, get out and go places sometimes, especially if you live far away.
Absolutely.
So it's like, to be able to log in and watch these streams is pretty exciting.
I mean, yeah, like I mean, it's incredible, man. Like, you know, some of the aftermarket hardware that's come out of the retro scene has been really amazing. And with a lot of without like a lot of that equipment, I wouldn't be able to broadcast some of this stuff at such a high quality because the products weren't around back then. Like, you know, things like the OSSC, FrameMeister, G-Scar Lite, like all those things are like really amazing.
Yeah, I talk to those guys, Super G more than Marcus, but I talk to them on a regular basis. And, you know, when they invented these things, I'm pretty sure they had one idea in mind, and I don't think they realized...
they didn't realize...
How awesome, what a massive game-changing difference it would possibly be. You know, you have everything... You got your G-SCART with your dual outputs, then you get one to the OSSC, so you have one out for streaming, the other one out to your monitor.
It's incredible. Yeah. I don't think that they realized when they made these devices how in demand they would be for people that play arcade stuff and people that stream, and like how mind blowing it is because it's literally converting an analog like signal to a digital with like no quality loss. That's incredible.
Even the setup I have here, to do this 5 years ago would be impossible. So I have my couple of my favorite consoles plugged into the G-SCART, the original the 3.4, not the original. And then the SCART output goes to the OSSC. The output of that goes through an HDMI splitter, one into some junky TV, and the other one into my capture card. And then the VGA output goes to just BNC.
Yep.
So that you could roll over any monitor you want. So, I mean, these devices just allow you to do everything. And changing home gaming was something I think everybody knew.
Yeah.
But the fact that you could take that to a different level and you could actually... I mean, I'm going to get footage on Saturday, but, I mean, to have two people head-to-head gaming against each other. And then to see it on a big screen behind them so you don't have to be up in their shit. And then also for people at home to be logged in and watching it. It's pretty incredible.
That's the thing. Like, head to head, like, is really, like, it's an authentic and unique experience. And it's literally something, like, you know, until the last 10 years or so, it's literally something that you can only experience in Japan. Yeah. There's really something to be said, like, about having, like, your own machine, right? Where you can sit down and nobody's bumping you. Because, like, in the U.S. arcades, we're always playing side by side. We're super crunched up. And then when I went to Japan for the first time in 2006... that shit blew my mind. I was like, wait, you guys have your own machine that you can play on? So you get to smoke and, like, drink, like, whatever, and then nobody will bother you? Like, it's really incredible.
When I first saw that, I think the first time I actually saw that was at that, it was either at that tournament or the week before when Jose was getting it ready.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, I put on some pounds this year, but I'm always this wide.
Yeah.
Since I was 15.
You need space.
Right? So when I'm trying to play Mortal Kombat, my elbow goes out.
Elbow always bump. Yes.
Yeah, I knock somebody out. And, like, I feel like an asshole, but, like, you know, skinny, fat, whatever. Like, I can't game like this. You know what I mean?
You can't.
So being able to have, you know, each person has their own side, that alone was mind-blowing to me. I had honestly never seen that.
Yeah, man, and then in Japan, it's all like that.
Are they called head-to-heads or
handicaps? So they're called head-to-heads, but the ones we're playing on were specific Sega candy cabinets.
Okay.
That's why you hear Candy Cab a lot, because those are the most popular arcade cabinets outside of Japan that get around.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. But in Japan, they have all this stuff all day. Oh yeah.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So as anybody who watches the podcast knows, the only way I could actually afford to have an office in New York City is having an office in the back of a warehouse in another office. So we just get interrupted because my dumbass forgot to put the recording in progress sign on. So sorry for the interruption.
It's all good, man. I definitely understand the struggle, man. Like, you know, me being in New York City, you know, trying to make gaming work.
Yeah.
Like as a business, it's very difficult.
Yeah, so, you know, I got two things to say about that now that because I've always visited, this is the first time I've lived in New York City. And the first thing is, I used to get so many people emailing me saying, you know, hey man, you know, I make good money, I can afford a BVM, but I don't have any room in my apartment for that shit. That's when, you know, you start talking about upscalers, and living in an apartment not much bigger than this has certainly really burned that into my brain. But the other side of that, and I never, like, I knew people say it, but you don't know unless you experience it, is that I would have never met half the people that I talk to on a regular basis now if I didn't live right in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know?
Like, even though New York's like expensive, it's definitely like one of the meccas, and you'll meet people here that like you won't meet like anywhere else, and like some of them become lifelong friends. Like, you know, like just as an example, like, you know, guys like iFix Retro, which constantly mods your stuff. That's a guy I've known. That's a guy I've known for like 10 years. You know, just playing Street Fighter and stuff. And like back then, like, you know, he wasn't known like as the mod RGB guy. He was just a guy that just came through and modded arcade sticks. So
yeah,
it's awesome that he stepped up to that level.
Yeah, and it's funny too because although I've made a lot of friends online, and then when you meet them in person, they're the exact same. Renee from DB Electronics, I've talked to him for years. The first time we met, we walked over, grabbed a beer. It was, you know, but it is a little bit different, you know, when you sit here and you can talk to somebody face to face, and you know, you tell right away who's real and who's not. You know
Absolutely,
what I mean?
absolutely.
There is no grace period. You tell immediately, and it was just, I don't know. I'm very lucky that I got to do this. I very often think like, well, what if I go move to the middle of the mountains and buy a house for $10,000 and I could afford to do this for a living? I would. I mean,
you wouldn't get the connects that like you would over here, and that's one of the reasons why like I don't leave New York. Like I kind of love this place, and like the connects that I've met over my past 20 years of gaming have been out of control. And plus now you're here. the RGB Godfather. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah, well, I do love that I get to be a part of this. And it's cool that iFix Retro's right down the street, you know, comparatively speaking. And I'm going to start going to all these events that I genuinely enjoy going to.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm really glad you're going to be coming to this 202 Furious.
Yeah, so before we go, I probably should have mentioned this 20 times already, but this Saturday, so the 22nd.
Yeah, this Saturday on the 22nd, we're going to be having...
Next Level, the place that we talked about that actually has parking.
Yep.
And that is... What time does it start?
So, it starts... so, like, I want to say it starts at 2 p.m. I'm gonna double check just to be sure, but I believe it does start at 2 p.m.
For anybody that just wants to watch it, so maybe this is gonna be your first entry into fighting tournaments or something. You kind of just want to see what's up. It's Team Spooky's Twitch channel is gonna be streaming it live, right?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Team Spooky.
Spooky with 2 zeros instead of O's in the Spooky.
I'm sorry. It's Saturday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m. Saturday.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The only thing that I'll say is that if I had seen video of this before actually going, I mean, it's just like going to a big concert with, flamethrowers and lights. You could watch it on TV, but you don't, it feels different when you're there. So if anybody's curious about this stuff, at the very least, just, because you have it on afterwards, so even if you can't see it live.
You'll definitely see the VODs on YouTube.
You'll see the highlight reels and all that stuff too, I'm sure you guys will put up. So definitely check that out. But if you're already in the area, I would swing by anyway, just because it's worth it. But
yeah, just to go over the games lineup real fast. So the event is called 202 Furious, so it's all old school fighting games.
Too
for the name
Old,
number
Furious.
2.
I fucking love that name.
So it's all fighting games in the name number 2. So at this event, the games are going to be Ultra Street Fighter 2. So it's going to be the Switch version of the new Street Fighter 2 port. So that's going to be the first tournament for it that I've seen. So that should be pretty cool. So that's going to be the only game that's not retro.
Okay.
That's going to be like the only HD game. And we're going to have Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, of course. What's really interesting about the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo tournament is that a Japanese legend, the best E-Honda player in the world named Kusamundo, he's like 40 or something. He's coming to our event because he saw like how much he blew up at the last one. A lot of Japanese players that watched it online, they saw the feedback, and then they were like, oh man, I really wish I was there. I really wish I was there. So some Japanese players have come up to me directly saying they want to come to 202 Furious because they feel it's the most authentic experience outside of Japan. So like, that's really an honor.
Yeah, what a compliment that is.
That's really an honor. So basically, he's going to be there at 202 Furious. So if you want to see or play the best Honda player in the world in Street Fighter 2, that's going to be the place to be. We're also having Street Fighter Alpha 2, which is like a pretty interesting game. Like, there's a lot of like local talent in the New York fighting game scene for it. And we're also going to have Street Fighter EX2 Plus, which is one of the marquee events during 202 Furious. This game has been getting a lot of attention lately because recently Arika, the company that makes this, they're currently crowdfunding a new Street Fighter EX fighting game. Mm-hmm. So they've been seeing our events and stuff, and they were actually at Evolution, and they were talking to me like about how amazing 202 Furious is, and there's gonna be like a lot of like comp for that in New York, so that should be pretty interesting. And like I said, it's going down Saturday at 5 p.m. And we also crowdfund the event as well, so hopefully the crowdfunding works out, and we can give Kusamundo like a fat pop bonus if he wins. That would be nice, because like the thing is with Japanese tournaments, they don't play for any money. It's very different from here. They just play for pride because they can't give away cash prizes in Japan by law.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So that's why like a lot of the Japanese players are so amazed by like what we're doing out here, because my last 202 Furious event that we did, we raised $1,600 for Street Fighter 2, which is literally phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's literally phenomenal. And we were able to pay out top 8. Damn Guy won that one. He walked away with like $800. So all the Japanese gods are sitting there in the Pacific salty. They're like, oh man, I wish I could be in New York to collect.
That's awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to be there. I'm going to try my best to cover it and do a video on it.
Awesome.
I'm not going to get in the fucking way this time.
Bob, it's okay. If anything, like I'll say, Bob, come behind the cockpit so you can see
away from the players. I haven't had my heart sink that bad in a long time. When I just lightly nudged somebody and I looked over and I realized I'd nudged the dude that was playing in the tournament. If that dude got up and punched me in the face, I'd have been like, totally cool, my bad, totally cool.
I think it was doing casual, so
yeah,
so it was all good. And that was a time where like I had not met you.
Yeah, it was the first time we met.
That was the first time. That was the first time we met.
Yeah, so this time I'll be on much better behavior. So,
but yeah, and you guys will see the RetroRGB logo at the event displayed prominently. Bob was nice enough to hook it up with like OSSC and a G-SCART light, and that's all equipment that like I need for this event. Like I'm trying to actually capture 4 arcade boards at once with OSSCs and BenQs and the G-SCART lights. So hopefully it works out. We're trying to break new ground over here.
And for all my fellow hardware nerds, don't worry, I'll get video of all of the different hardware setups there just so you can see it. So
yeah, of course. Now, like I think like more people need to know about this stuff. Like I said, when I went to West Coast, everybody was just shouting you out for giving them all the tech info because they're trying to get OSSCs and PVMs and BVMs too.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah, they wouldn't have known about it. They wouldn't have known about it without you. So I'm really glad that there's that cross pollination going on.
Yeah, I know. I think we've introduced each other to a pretty awesome world that are so similar, but haven't quite crossed paths yet. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for doing this, man. I absolutely appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I'll see you guys next week and probably before that with a video about 202 Furious. So take care, man.
Thanks.